Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States.
We have been given a gift by God today to usher in a new dynasty.
Now you get RFK Jr.
Don't you want a president who's going to make America healthy again?
You get Tulsi Gabbard.
Putting our country in a continual state of war.
You get Elon Musk and you get J.D. Vance.
A hell of a way to start the next 4 years.
The right-wing Avengers.
We have an army of digital soldiers.
Department of Defense under Donald Trump will achieve peace through strength.
Shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one.
A rescission of 78 Biden-era executive actions, executive orders, presidential memoranda, and others.
The golden age of America has most definitely begun.
Begin preparing the 30,000-person migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay.
They're getting the dirtbags off these streets.
There's one guy who can fix this shit, and it's Donald Trump.
What's storm, Mr. President?
You'll find out.
Just like witches at black masses, evil minds that plot destruction, sorcerer of death's construction. In the fields, the bodies burning, as a war machine keeps turning. Death and hatred to mankind. Oh no, poisoning their minds. Politicians hide themselves away. They only started on the war. Why should they go out to fight? They leave that to the poor. They leave that to the poor. Now in darkness, world stop turning. Ashes where their bodies burning. Pigs have their power, and a God has struck the hour. Day of judgment, God is calling. On the knees, the war pigs crawling, begging mercy for their sins. Oh no, Satan, spread your wings. Time will tell on their power and minds, making war for just fun, treating people just like pawns in chess, until the judgment day comes. Politicians hide themselves away. They only started on the war. Why should they go out to fight? They leave that to the poor. They leave that to the poor.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name is Josh. Welcome to the Red Pill Project's Daily Dose. My mic is so far away. I hope everybody out there is doing well and having a great Tuesday evening. Tuesday, DEFCON night. DEFCON 0 tonight. Yes. And this is the crazy part. I just got done recording an hour episode with Alpha Nino. So an hour with Alpha Nino, probably an hour and a half with you guys, and then right in the DEFCON for 2.5 hours. Man, it's going to be a long night. But it's well worth it because there's a lot of information that I got shit all over me. There's a lot of information that we have to go over and a lot of things happening. Last night, we didn't really get into the news. I had Tammy on for the first part, which was awesome. And you're going to see her every few weeks coming in on Monday nights. And then we had Colonel Towner Watkins come on. And that was an interesting conversation. I had a great time with Colonel Towner and learned a lot of new things that I did not know. Although there's points that I think differently. I see a little bit differently, but I love her knowledge base. Amazing. So great having Colonel Towner on. Love that. I'm going to start tonight off. Firstly, the Great Silent War. That's what we're in right now. It's the Great Silent War. There's things happening behind the scenes that we don't even know, but we can see it. We can feel it. We can see the repercussions of it, but it's just not apparent. And actually, the Nino Alpha conversation I just had was a lot about that. It's an interesting conversation. You should just definitely go listen. We talked about 3-Eye Atlas and aliens and reptilians, and it was kind of interesting. Definitely not a conversation I've had with those guys like that before, but definitely one to go watch. And by the way, yes, I will play it. So I'll probably put that interview up. If I can get it up tonight, I'll get it up tonight, but I do have DEFCON, so it'll probably be tomorrow. So just pay attention for that one. But we are at war. And this is a post that I had on X. I think I posted it yesterday. But I want to read this for you because I like to write, and I like to write things that are truthful. I like to write things that are meaningful. I like to write things that have a social and cultural and political impact for people. That when they read it, they go, oh my God, he's so right. And this is the truth as I see it. We are at war. If you are reading this, you're already on the battlefield. This war isn't fought with bullets, but with beliefs and ideas. It's not about territory, it's about truth. Perception is reality. And the ones who control perception shape the world itself. Social media is the new front line. Narrative control has become a wartime strategy. Headlines are missiles, algorithms are drones, memes are psychological operations, and intelligence agencies are active. Social engineering and information framing, these are now the most powerful weapons ever devised. They don't need to silence you. They just need to distract you, to make you forget what's real while they rewrite the story and frame the narrative. Protecting your mind is the greatest defense. The battlefield is not external, it's internal. They're not coming for your freedom, they're coming for your focus. Because if they can shape what you see, they can shape what you believe. Guard your mind like sacred ground. Question everything. Think critically. Stay sovereign. Because in this war, truth is the ultimate military offensive. Know what it means to be a digital soldier. And that's the truth as I know it. And tons of great comments out there. And a lot of people in agreement with what I said there. Now, I said this because what we see at the surface level, what we are witnessing right now, what's being portrayed by the mainstream media, what's being constructed in the narrative on social media from all sides, and I want to emphasize that, from all sides is not what's happening. Okay? If we truly, honestly believe that Donald Trump moved an entire naval fleet, aircraft carrier, destroyers, cruisers, plus more destroyers and cruisers and nuclear submarines to the Caribbean and Venezuela that destroy drug boats, you're not paying attention, okay? There's more going on than meets the eye. But this is the surface level understanding. And this is why I think a lot of people on the left have a very hard time understanding, like, Donald Trump's a warmonger. He's spending all the naval fleet over there, billions of dollars a day, just for a few different speedboats. It makes no sense. Drugs aren't that bad. There's more to it than all of this. We're going to get into that whole Caribbean, Venezuela, what's going on there. A little extrapolation. Actually, the show that I had planned for last night was, well, I had those guests already booked, but I was going to try to do a double booker last night and do an elongated version, but I've just been so tired lately. I'm just doing a lot of shows. It's getting crazy. So today, if you didn't notice, is October 28th, the 8-year anniversary of the first ever Q post. We call this the Q-versary. Q-versary, like an anniversary, but Q-versary. And sure, Donald Trump giving comments the way that he gives comments, right? I just love it. Talking about Jerome Powell here. Listen to what he says.
I call him too late. He's always too late. He's been too late. And Jerome, too late Powell. So somebody gave me a bad reference on him. I put him in based on some guy that turned out to be not so hot. And we got a bad Fed guy, but he'll be out of there a few months. And we'll get somebody new. I guess, Scott, you have a long list of people that want it. If anybody has any suggestions, because we really do. We have, all the people that are being talked to. If you have a suggestion, just shout it out.
Ron Paul.
Mark, do you have a suggestion?
Ron
Mark
Paul
has some pretty good suggestions. You put me on the cover of Time magazine. That was a nice picture. Thank you very much for that. That was very good. It was a nice story too. Thank you very much. I've been on the cover almost 50 times, but Mark, I can only use 17 of them. Meaning the rest of them aren't so good. 17 are great. This one was very good. This is going up. Now I have 18. Thank you very much.
17, 17, 18. Little call out there to all of us Anons. Now, Donald Trump just left Japan after signing a historic trade deal with the new prime minister of Japan. He is heading, I don't know where he's heading next, but I know Thursday he is going to be meeting with Xi Jinping on the final negotiations of trade with China. This is where it gets a little interesting. I think that Thursday's shows when we start to discuss this is going to get really crazy in this context, because I believe, it's my thoughts from intelligence that I actually have and information I have, that Xi Jinping is a limited actor in China. What does that mean? That he has power. He's the head of the government in the PLA, but he has limited power. And this limited power came about through power moves being made against him by members of the PLA and the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. And this comes about because Donald Trump humiliated him on the global stage. Although Xi Jinping, you got to remember, number one, the CCP is huge, much, much bigger than our government. But one thing that we have to understand is that power isn't kind of centralized to three different branches like it is here. It's not as clean cut. It's very diversified. There's various different factions that operate in China. You have the CCP elders, which control a lot. And apparently, from what we get, is that the CCP elders want Xi Jinping removed, whether physically, through assassination, medical, or whatnot. They want him out of there because he's embarrassed China on the global stage. Now, Xi Jinping still being in power, meeting with Donald Trump is actually a signifier that he's regaining ground within his power base and structure. Now, I don't know how Thursday is going to play out with Donald Trump and Xi Jinping's meeting. I bet they're going to come away with some type of trade deal. The tariffs will move back down from the 155%, probably back down to whatever they were before, the 50%. And everything will be all good. We know that China's already relinquished the hold on the rare earth minerals and metals that they had put on them about 3 weeks ago. And so this is actually really interesting because it is another signifier that Xi Jinping is taking back power and control internally to China. So we'll talk about that here in a little bit. There's just a small part of the show. I'm going to get into all that. What I wanted to bring up right now was something interesting. We are witnessing one of the most epic storms ever Hurricane Melissa that formed the last few days in the Caribbean is now making landfall in Jamaica. This is a Category 5 hurricane, the first hurricane of the year. We have not had any other hurricanes, and this one just comes out of nowhere. Now, I'm not a hurricane expert. I don't know how these things operate or anything like that, but I'm going to bring up the storm tracker, and I want you to begin noticing something here, okay? This is Hurricane Melissa. Now, I want you to imagine for a minute, though, that the U.S. Navy is right here, okay? So this means that the U.S. Navy actually had to disperse around this storm as it came in. So it comes in, and if it kept on going in this direction, it would have been a Cat 5 hitting Florida, Louisiana, Houston, potentially. That would have been massively devastating to the United States of America. Not only would it have been devastating to the United States of America, the government's shut down right now. There's a lack of federal funding, including FEMA funds. If that storm had hit the United States of America as a Cat 5, this would have been a national disaster. Huge, huge implications for this. Number one is 2 of the major shipping channels in the country are shut down, so that's supply chain. Number 2 is you cannot mobilize federal forces for aid. You already have people suffering with SNAP and other types of things. You have government workers that aren't getting paid. This would have been massive. This would have been a black swan level event for the United States of America. But instead, the storm makes a 90-degree turn. Comes in, makes a 90-degree turn, hooks right, hits Guantanamo Bay and Jamaica. Now, I believe weather manipulation is real on both sides. And what I think we just witnessed here was an attack of weather manipulation against the United States. Because, I mean, you got to think about it. Whomever this hidden hand is behind the scenes, we know they have certain technologies like this. We know Schumer is manipulating the Senate to keep the government shut down because they want the war of attrition, right? So think about the war of attrition of how this works with the government being shut down. As more and more people go without getting paid, they have to feed their families. They have to do something. When you start telling the military to deploy or FEMA to deploy or go do this or go do that, they're going to push back and say, no, I need to get paid. Now, if you have a level event like this occur in the midst of a government shutdown and a lack of funding, you're going to have a catalyst for a massive disaster within your supply chain, within your political center. This would make Donald Trump look incredibly bad. Not only bad, this would make Donald Trump approval rating go down into the teens. This would be horrible. It's almost like it was planned. But right at that last minute before it makes that turn upwards towards Florida, towards Louisiana, or towards Texas, it diverts hard right, 90 degrees. Almost like someone pushed the storm out of the way. Like someone, instead of letting it keep on going as a tropical depression, going into the Gulf of America and then forming as a Cat 5, prematurely formed it as a Cat 5 in the Caribbean, and then manipulated the storm to go in a different direction. Now you understand what I'm talking about with a silent war. Kind of an interesting scenario. But I think that it's a good analysis of what that was all about. Now, yes, Jamaica is getting devastated. And how dare Donald Trump, if that is true, he let Jamaica get devastated. Well, yeah, I mean, I love Jamaica. Just happens to be a C-15 or C-20 city. It's a 15-minute city, right? Kingston, Jamaica. They want to renovate it. It's going to get all the renovations it needs after this. But I don't think it's going to be the globalists that are going to go in there to do it. I do believe that it'll be the United States actually offering the aid. Remember, we already got the Navy there. After this storm passes, I bet you it's the U.S. Navy that goes into Jamaica, starts rendering aid and helping people and helping to clean up and doing rescue missions. I guarantee it. Steve Bannon did an interview with The Economist the other day. This is a 3-minute conversation. I'm only going to play some of it, but I want you to listen to what Steve Bannon says, and then I'm going to explain what I hear from this.
And does he need a third term in order to see that job through?
Well, he's going to get a third term. So Trump 28, Trump is going to be president 28, and people just ought to get accommodated with that.
So what about the 22nd Amendment?
There's many different alternatives. At the appropriate time, we'll lay out what the plan is, but there's a plan, and President Trump will be the president in 28. We had longer odds in 16 and longer odds in 24 than we got in 28. And President Trump will be the president of the United States, and the country needs him to be president of the United States. We have to finish what we started. And the way we finish it through Trump, I know this will drive you guys crazy, but he's a vehicle of divine providence. He's an instrument. He's very imperfect. He's not churchy, not particularly religious, but he's an instrument of divine will. And you can tell this of how he's pulled this off. We need him for at least one more term, right? And he'll get that in 28.
You're not driving me crazy. I'm really I'm trying to understand the coherence of the things you've just told me in the last few minutes. On the one hand, you've said the Constitution is fit for purpose. Secondly, you've said that President Trump needs another term, even though the 22nd Amendment makes pretty clear that he cannot have another term.
Why does it make that clear?
Because he's on his second term already.
At some point in time, we will make sure we go through Zanny and define all those terms.
Defining all those terms, right, Steve Bannon? Now, Steve Bannon is pretty adamant there that Donald Trump is going to have a third term. Now, does that mean that he's going to get elected for a third term? Or does it mean that he's going to get appointed for a third term? And what is Josh actually talking about here? Is there something going on there in the language of Steve Bannon, the plan, that maybe we are missing? I'm looking for a post. I thought I actually had it up. I didn't. It was the one main post. Oh, there it is. To Michael out there, military is the only way. Jason Redding-Quiones is an American lawyer serving as the United States Attorney for the District of Southern Florida since 2025, a place where the grand jury is impaneled this January and will be investigating the Mar-a-Lago raid, Biden weaponization, and even events prior that connect to it. These include the 2020 election, January 6th, and FISAgate, what I call the grand conspiracy. Mike Davis has suggested that top officials, including former Attorney General Merrick Garland, Deputy General Lisa Monaco, FBI Director Chris Wray, and Special Counsel Jack Smith should be compelled to testify before this grand jury to answer questions about what Davis says is the politicized use of the legal system. I think that it sounds like a great place to open up this grand jury on Crossfire Hurricane and against these lawfare Democrats, Davis said. On a side note, Jason is a reserve lieutenant colonel in the United States Air Force. Do you see where I'm going with this? Lieutenant Colonel Jason Quiones. Just like Lieutenant Colonel, Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. So for everybody out there, Q14 places it very firmly. It talks about the laws, classified information. It talks about legal jurisdiction of how does the military get control over the intelligence apparatus? How do you enter evidence legally? How do you get that to the civilian trials and prosecute them with military evidence? DNI Tulsi Gabbard was that implementation of that. Right? We could take a SAP program that was being run through the National Security Agency or the Defense Intelligence Agency for 4 years that was collecting data and preserving data that the Democrats were destroying. We could take that and now make up stories. Hey, we found this in burn bags in a broom locker at the 7th floor of the FBI or the 7th floor of the CIA. And Tulsi Gabbard can now enter that into the evidence legally and then send that to the DOJ for criminal referrals, of which we've already seen with Comey, Brennan, and you're going to see more Clapper, so forth, coming forth, and Obama and Clinton and all these people. But now you have the lead attorney that is going to prosecute them, who's a lieutenant colonel, who did not resign his commission, who did not retire from the reserves. Still an active reserve lieutenant colonel. Now, why does this matter? One of the things that Jason Quinones is going to be investigating is FISAgate, is Russia, Russia, Russia. So the 2020 election. And if you're thinking that, well, Donald Trump really won the 2020 election, so he should get another term. Well, Donald Trump did win the 2020 election, but obviously Biden was inaugurated. There's no denying that. Biden was inaugurated. Whoever was standing in for Biden, because we know about the auto pen scandal, we'll get into that in a few minutes, but whoever's standing in for Biden, Obama, was in charge. But it was more of a stalemate through 2020 to 2024 because of information and how all of this works and various allies around the world. So, no, Donald Trump is not going to get to serve the term of 2020 to 2024. There's two scenarios of which what Steve Bannon was talking about come to fruition. And they don't need really an interpretation of the 22nd Amendment. Number one is in 2026, we're about to see the end of the Democratic Party. I think that everybody understands that and knows this. The Trump administration is putting in certain rules and restrictions. We're talking about paper ballots. We just had Real ID pass. This will most likely cross paths in the context of a voter ID. We have various Democrat states, I'm in Minnesota, that have already implemented the rules of enhanced or Real ID, which means that every other Democrat state will have to do that as well, and they can easily just transition that into a voter ID, which is most likely going to be the case. So you have that idea. You have the reorganization of the election systems. Right now in California and New Jersey, you have some elections coming up, and the DOJ is sending election spotters out there to watch these elections. That's really important. In other words, they're signifying that in the 2026 midterm elections, there's going to be no cheating allowed, and they're going to ensure that no cheating is allowed. Which means that you go back to the Q boards, 2018 red wave. Now you're actually going to get your red wave. What does red wave mean? It means that rhinos, Democrats, strongholds are removed. It means that the MAGA community is going to have a supermajority in Senate and Congress. And a supermajority in Senate and Congress give us wide range of powers within the federal government, especially with Trump still in the presidency. But see, that's not all. Right now, Republicans control 31 out of 50 states. After the midterms, I think that you're going to see a 3/4 majority of states, 38, controlled by Republicans. Why does that matter? Because that brings grounds to what's known as a constitutional convention. Now, I've said this from the get-go, that the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve and the Sovereign Wealth Fund, that the Sovereign Wealth Fund is going to become a constitutional amendment. They are going to implement this into the United States Constitution to ensure that it's very clearly written that Congress cannot borrow or tax or take money directly out of the Sovereign Wealth Fund. This is for funding the government at a certain percentage level and for the people when profitability is ensured into it. Period. That's pretty huge. But it also gives the ability to go out there and discuss two other things. Well, one other thing that we've been talking about, term limits. And see, in the 22nd Amendment, you can actually do an adjustment to that, annexation of that, and say that the president can run for 3 4-year terms. At the same time, you can come out and limit every congressman to 4 or to 6 2-year terms, 12 years. Every senator to 3 4-year terms. In other words, 12 years becomes the max on term limits. And that would actually be really good for the 12th Amendment. But you can't just do it to Congress and Senate. You got to do it to everybody. You got to bump up Trump to 1 more year. So that's one scenario where Trump would actually get elected. The other is actually a lot easier. See, Bannon mentioned the 2016 election. He mentioned that they were trying to steal and it got stopped. We know what happened, the military operation here. But see, Trump's presidency from 2016 to 2020 was impeded. The Mueller investigation, you had impeachment 1, impeachment 2, Russia, FISA-gate. Everything that he tried to do was impeded by a complicit, tyrannical, and treasonous Congress and deep state actors embedded within our country. In other words, he didn't actually have the ability to be president from 2016 to 2020. Like he says, I should get another term. And imagine Jason Kionis out there running the grand jury. And this grand jury goes out there and they agree that from 2016 to 2020, it was massive lawfare that Congress was acting in treasonous means. People like Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi were acting and collaborating with deep state actors to intentionally impede the progress of the Trump administration. That the Mueller investigation was based upon nothing more than political dirt paid for by the DNC and by Hillary Clinton that sparked a whole FISA investigation through the DOJ and the FBI with foreign intelligence agencies involved in it to try to coup Donald Trump, and Congress and Senate was in on it. You got to remember, in January 2017, it was the Senate Intelligence Committee that approved the intelligence community assessment of 2016 that said, yes, this is what happened. That was based upon the Steele dossier. Like I said, they were complicit. In other words, Donald Trump's going to get a real redo over 2016 to 2020. Look at this as his first term. And what you're going to see come out of this grand jury is that not only are these people going to be prosecuted, but that Donald Trump should get a term where he's actually able to be president, 2028 to 2032. And it'll probably have to go up to the Supreme Court, but I'm pretty sure that they'll come back and say, we agree. That due to the evidence at hand of FISA-gate and all the investigations that are going on and the corruption and the treason and the coup, Obama and Brennan and Clinton and all of this stuff, that yes, they impeded him. And then Congress was in on it and Senate was in on it. You got to remember, Paul Ryan and Mike Pence. When Donald Trump won the primary, he picks Mike Pence as his running mate. They had internal communications between the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, and Mike Pence at that time, who was Donald Trump's running mate, that if he won, that they were going to try to pull out RNC Rule number 9, to where they're going to remove Donald Trump from the candidacy, and Pence and Ryan would run for president under the RNC ticket. That's a coup. The documents, the records, it's all there. All of this is happening. All of this is going to come to light. Now, who financed it? You can't even really say George Soros anymore, right? I mean, George Soros is like 91, 92 years old. I'm pretty sure the guy's like, right? Like, he's not in it. It's Alex Soros, and it's a network and a group of people that work inside their internal networks. So, Fox News yesterday released a bombshell exposing that Zohran Mamdani, the candidate for New York City mayor, was funded by a $2.9 million network of George Soros and Islamic activist donors. George Soros and Islamic activists? What's this all about? Well, there's more to all of this than meets the eye. See, it's big money when you bring immigrants, whether legal or illegal, into this country. Now, Mamdani is nothing more than a George Soros stooge, who's also more or less a socialist, communist, if you want to look at it like that, AOC type. It goes back to the idea that what's really happening globally is there's two competing world orders. On one side, you have the one world government, the globalists that want to create their commie-fascist oligarchical controlled one world order. And on the other hand, you have the patriots who are working with what we would call to be the sovereign alliance, who are trying to produce a multipolar world. But they have to eradicate all of the echelons of power that are integrated throughout all the governments, of all the worlds, of all the intelligence agencies, of all the institutions, throughout all the secret societies. And you have to begin to dismantle that network. And this is what we've seen over the last 10 months. Now, George Soros' institutions are a big part of this, but there's more hidden hands behind all of this. We'll come back to that in a minute. House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer believes that all of the pardons granted under the Biden administration should be null and void, and says the ball is now in Pam Bondi's court. He says, we've handed this to Pam Bondi on a silver platter. We've done all the heavy lifting. We've done the depositions. We've combed through the emails. Now it's up to her to bring these people in. Here's your opportunity to try to defend the other positions. If not, the report is 100% accurate, and these pardons need to be declared null and void. This is interesting. Biden's top aide squirms as he admits the financial incentive cover-up of Biden's cognitive decline. Check this out. 2-minute long video.
Just to be clear, would the amount of pay you received for your role in the campaign, would that have changed depending on how far into the race President Biden made it?
My sense is that in my view, the money was
today, Junior.
It was a guarantee for the campaign that we'd had a negotiation, and that's my memory of the agreement.
Would you have received a bonus depending on the way the campaign went? Was that a possibility?
He's definitely not trying to perjure himself.
How the campaign went.
Were there any circumstances in which you would have received a bonus?
Yes, there was.
What were those circumstances?
That Joe Biden would have been re-elected president of the United States.
What would the bonus have been?
I believe it would have been $4 million.
In addition to the $4 million that you were already paid?
Yes.
The lie about Joe Biden's cognitive decline. Unbelievable, isn't it? Man, I'll lie about Joe Biden's cognitive decline for $4 million. Not in that position, but. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Mike Davis yesterday. The government shut down. The Democrats are trying to get us to increase insurance benefits and these types of things for illegal immigrants. It's just not going to happen. Mike Davis says this, and yes, this is all intercorrelated. America spends over $100 billion on food stamps each year for over 42 million people. More than $1 for every $8 we spend in our federal non-defense discretionary budget. Every 8th person in America. These are staggering numbers. We're not providing temporary assistance to those who cannot help themselves. We've created a permanent welfare state. Many of these welfare recipients are grown-ass young men who can work, and morbidly obese women with too many kids from too many baby daddies. Now let's get a breakdown. The 1-minute breakdown from Newsmax of what Mike Davis is actually trying to tell us.
There are 42 million people in this country
that need food stamps on a weekly basis. And we're saying people deliberately instead of Americans, because most of the people that are on food stamps aren't even from this country. 45% of Afghanistan immigrants are on food stamps, 42% of Somali immigrants, 34% of every immigrant from Iraq, 23% of Haitians, 59% of all illegal aliens are collecting food stamps, meaning that most of the people getting food stamps from the U.S. government and the U.S. taxpayer are not even Americans. Think about that. And we didn't know about any of this before the government shutdown started, but thanks to Democrats, we can confirm tonight that millions of Joe Biden illegal aliens, people who crossed the border when Joe was president, are now collecting food stamps from a program funded by hardworking American taxpayers. There are 42.
Oh, really? Over 57% of the 42 million receiving tax dollar benefits, food stamps. You know, the ones out there spending $6,000, $10,000 on food every month are not even American. Now, remember Mamdani, George Soros funding, and other Islamic groups funding him? You remember the new triad, the golden triad of terror? I'm going to talk about that here in a minute. Actually, I'll talk about that right now. We'll just pull up the post. We'll pull up the post before we watch the video. Mohammed's 3 steps of infiltration. I didn't know about this until I looked it up after I watched this video. Mohammed's 3 steps of infiltration. Immigrate, increase, eliminate. Immigrate as a religious refugee. Increase your number of followers and demand political accommodations. Eliminate the previous culture. This is what is happening right now in Michigan, Minnesota, Texas, and throughout the United States. This is what happened in Egypt, a predominantly Christian nation, now Muslim. Turkey, predominantly Christian nation, now Muslim, and many other nations. Sharia law, when enforced as state policy, functions as a totalitarian system cloaked in divine authority. It dictates every aspect of life, religion, politics, law, and behavior, leaving no space whatsoever for individual freedom or dissent. Implemented through ruthless, feudal-style control, religious elites act as lords over the people, enforcing obedience through fear, punishment, and indoctrination. What's portrayed as God's law becomes a tool of domination, where a system of submission replaces liberty. Faith is weaponized to sustain power. The modern golden triangle of global control is ideological. The Islamic theocracy is the religious component. Radical leftism is the political component. And communism is the economic component. These form a triad of globalist authoritarianism cloaked in moral virtue. Each promises equality or faith, but delivers control. Each suppresses dissent in the name of righteousness. And together they create the perfect ideological system. Spiritual submission, political obedience, and economic dependency. Different faces, same outcome. Total control disguised as liberation. This is what we are fighting. This is the threat every human being on this planet. The master plan for global control, and it's already in progress. Now let's listen to this gentleman explain it way better than I ever could.
Its 3 steps was immigrate, increase, eliminate. Immigrate as a religious refugee, increase the number of your followers and demand political accommodation, and then eliminate the previous culture. So I was speaking in Detroit area, and afterwards had people come up and visit around the book table, and they were telling me about a lady who had a ministry to pregnant mothers. So she shows up at a Muslim house, has a little present. Well, out of a bedroom comes another pregnant Muslim mom. Out of a bedroom comes another pregnant Muslim mom. Out of a bedroom comes another pregnant Muslim mom, all pregnant by the same man. He's practicing Sharia law in his house. And then someone else says, oh yeah, Fazl bought a bunch of houses on the street, has a wife in each one.
Where was this?
In Detroit area. The wives go down to the welfare office and say their husband's not around. He goes and visits them, and the more kids they have, the larger the checks get. And he's living like a king at state expense, and all the kids playing in the middle of the street are his children. He's practicing Sharia law on his block. They take over several more blocks, and they vote in the school board. And now they have their Sharia in the schools. And then they take over more blocks. They vote in the police department, fire department. And in Hamtramck, Detroit, they vote in the majority of the city council. They have their minarets, their calls to prayer 5 times a day, no different than Pakistan. So we see the first ones come in as immigrants, and they're nice, and they're so nice, everybody says they're nice, nothing to fear, let more in, more come in, they gravitate together, form a community. Imam shows up and says, okay, you need to start getting a little more serious about this, more fundamental. Then the burqas start appearing, people say the neighborhood's changing, they move out, more Muslims move in, and then there's always that stickler that says, I refuse to move out. And that's when there's random violence from Muslim youth. And there's no witnesses, because no Muslim family dare testify against another Muslim family on behalf of some kafir infidel that's hanging in the neighborhood. And so eventually they take over the entire neighborhood. And they do this neighborhood by neighborhood, city by city, block by block, until they take over countries. And there's 1,400 years of track record to observe this pattern. So they took over Egypt, which used to be Coptic Christian. They took over Syria, which used to be Christian. They took over all of Turkey, which used to be Christian. Took over all of North Africa, which used to be. They took Spain, held it for 700 years until the Spaniards drove them out.
Do you see a pattern? You're watching it. The open borders, the inflow of people, sanctuary cities, why the Democrats want to increase the amount of spending for these immigrants and illegal immigrants and legal immigrants, why they were flooding various different parts of the states and in our country with massive amounts of Islamic, Muslim, Middle Eastern inflow coming in. Dearborn, Michigan. How about this? Go to the UK right now and look at the random acts of violence coming from Muslim communities on white people, rape and violence. Notice nobody's getting prosecuted on the Muslim side. You had Keir Starmer come out the other day and say, we're so sorry about this recent attack in your community, but he's not doing that to the white communities. Why? Because that's the last people in those communities that they need to eradicate to take over full control. 1,400 years of track record. Now understand that Islam is nothing more than a system of control. It's a religious system of control. And that behind Islam are globalists. Behind socialism and communism are the globalists. Behind all of these movements, the radical left movement are the globalists. This is their plan. This is their golden triangle of submission. The United States was a target. Not anymore. Hence why Donald Trump is moving to eradicate communist governments from this hemisphere. That's one part that we're going to get into here. Actually, right about now. Trinidad and Tobago is deepening diplomatic row with Caracas over U.S. military activity in the Caribbean on Tuesday, mulling a mass deportation of undocumented migrants, most of whom are Venezuelans, from its territory. Tobago just actually caught some CIA mercenary groups operating inside their country. I think that whole area has been infiltrated by the globalists, and that the leaders that once under control of the CIA proper are now under control of a hidden hand. And Donald Trump, I believe, is actually working to free them from this hidden hand. That's what we're witnessing. So we have, bring this one up. U.S. officials are in talks with rare earth minerals and metals with Brazilian miners. U.S. diplomat Gabriel Escobar pulled up to a mining event in Brazil to chat rare earths, the metals hiding inside your phone, Xbox, and EV. He's trying to lock down supply chains and maybe kill off some Trump-era tariffs while he's at it. Brazil, Venezuela, many countries in this area are very rich in rare earth minerals and metals. Today, war erupted between authorities and drug cartels in Brazil. Dozens killed in the country's largest armed confrontation in decades. In Rio de Janeiro, around 2,500 police officers and special forces stormed areas near the international airport, key strongholds of the Red Command, one of Brazil's most powerful cartels. The operation began at dawn. In response, gang members opened fire and set cars on fire and built barricades. For the first time in Brazil's history, drug traffickers reportedly used FPV drones to drop explosives on police units. Venezuelan F-16s were reportedly scrambled earlier today in El Libertador Air Base and Maracay in order to intercept a Cessna 310 aircraft that stealthily entered Venezuela from Colombian airspace. The aircraft then landed in a remote dirt field. Immediately after, the F-16 shot a missile at it and destroyed it. It was a suspected drug trafficker. Now, here's the interesting tidbit. Do you find it odd that Brazil, Venezuela are fighting back against drug traffickers, cartels? That Brazil's literally going in there, starting a war that has been waged in decades against drug cartels. Venezuela, Maduro, they ordered this F-16 to shoot down this drug trafficking aircraft that came in from Colombia. I already talked to you early last week about how Colombia is actually the ringleader in all of the drug production and movements, and Venezuela is just a logistic support area. It brings credence to the idea that maybe Maduro is actually working with the Trump administration. Maybe Brazil and Venezuela now have confidence that the Trump administration is there with the U.S. Navy in that region, and they're decimating these cartels, because we know that the CIA operators and clandestine services and paramilitary groups are operating in these countries. Maybe what's actually happening is a silent war, a hidden war behind the scenes that's eradicating a lot of this infrastructure to the point where these countries are actually beginning to fight back. Because for the longest time, the cartels were just so strong that these countries couldn't. What the fuck am I talking about? Well, what am I talking about here? I'm talking about literal evidence that we have Maduro going out there and issuing F-16s to shoot down drug traffickers coming in from Colombia and then missiling their fucking plane on the ground. How Brazil in Rio de Janeiro, for the first time in decades, ordered over 2,500 police and military special forces to go in and start eliminating cartels. That's what I'm talking about. Something that wasn't happening last year with Joe Biden's administration, something that wasn't happening 10 months ago when there was no Navy presence in the Caribbean. But now you have a massive U.S. naval presence in the Caribbean. You have CIA paramilitary groups operating throughout Central and South America, already confirmed through President Trump. Then all of a sudden, Maduro is going to start striking cartels, and Brazil is going to start going after cartels? If you don't see patterns, I don't know what to do for you. But that's a massive pattern that you need to look into and say, hey, maybe what I'm being told about this whole situation isn't what necessarily is at the surface level. Maybe there's something deeper. Maybe that these cartels are controlled by a criminal faction, an international criminal faction, and that they control these governments through proxy, through the criminality, through the threat of violence. But the Trump administration has gone in and used the military as a dissident force to suppress those cartels, to take out a lot of their structural zones, weaken them to a certain point to where these countries can begin to fight back. That's what I'm suggesting. And the evidence actually is pointing towards that. Wagner Group just went into Venezuela. We had confirmation of that today. I think that that's protection for Maduro. I don't think that's necessarily protection from the United States of America. I think that's protection for Maduro from cartels. Chinese military, we haven't heard of any Chinese military presence in South America. The Chinese military presence actually has been in the cartels in Central America, primarily Mexico. Yeah, J.W. McCarthy said if on another podcast someone pointed out that if this was really about drugs, U.S. Navy ships would be in the Pacific. That was me, because that's where I was deployed to, and that's what we did. Pacific is where the majority of those drugs are actually being trafficked from. Why? Because there's less potential or probability for them to be interdicted. Although the Caribbean's a shorter distance from point A to point B, the Pacific, there's a high likelihood that you'll never get caught just because of the sheer amount of water between you and the Navy assets. And then today, it was kind of weird. The Senate voted to terminate Trump's 50% tariffs on Brazilian imports, 52 to 48. Still got to pass Congress. Now, at the end of the day, if Trump really was helping Venezuela and Brazil and all of these Central and South American countries eradicate these international criminal organizations that are operating with cartel armies, giving this feudalistic power to these cartels in their country, which then control the politics, if they're really helping to eradicate them, what's the trade-off? What does the Trump administration get? 91% of Venezuelan oil goes to China. Venezuela, Brazil, and other countries in South and Central America are incredibly rich in rare earth minerals and metals, almost compensating for the excess of loss that we would get if things went wrong or awry with China. In other words, the war, the renegotiation of the world, everything that we're seeing right now is about the control of resources, energy, supply chains, and the transportation of supply lines, Panama Canal, shipping channels, ports. One of the things that we have seen, but most people aren't talking about, in the Middle East, for example, is the dismantling of the Belt and Roads Initiative that China had actually set up. You got to remember, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Iran were massive partners in this, and this has been dismantled. In South America, that coastline, that northern coastline, Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, Brazil, and Venezuela, that is the Belt and Roads Initiative at work. It's being dismantled as we speak. Donald Trump's going to ensure that those countries don't trade with China. They don't trade with any other countries but us, that their resources come directly to the United States of America. This is one of the reasons why he just did the agricultural deal with beef with Argentina, to show these other countries that, hey, the United States is willing to trade with you. They're willing to be your partner to bring it forth. That's right. Tyler Durden said it's a deep state Silk Road. That's exactly what it is. It's actually called, they call it the New Silk Road, the Belt and Roads Initiative. It's the New Silk Road. And Trump is systematically dismantling it. Why? Because he who controls the resources, the energy, and the supply chain in the next 2 to 3 years is going to control the world. They're going to influence the world towards the next progressive state. Why? Because of artificial intelligence, because of technology, because we all have 100-year-old antiquated infrastructure throughout our countries that needs to be upgraded, and you need massive amounts of supplies in order to build that. You need data centers in every major city. You need micronuclear reactors in every community. This is what we're about to see over the course of the next 5 to 10 years. How do you do that? Well, you need to acquire massive amounts of resources and energy. That's what Trump's doing. That's what wins wars. And I heard about the monkeys today. Truck hauling aggressive monkeys carrying hepatitis C, herpes, and COVID overturns in Mississippi. Sheriff says that all but one of the animals has been destroyed. Good. I remember hearing something about this in Pennsylvania a few years back when 3 monkeys escaped and had some smallpox or something like that. Why the hell do they keep on transporting these monkeys with weird, crazy viruses around the country? It's an accident waiting to happen. And it happens more so than not. Was this a plot? Potentially. Who knows? But thank goodness for good sharpshooters and marksmen of the Sheriff's Department. The Senate Judiciary Committee is investigating the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for funneling millions of dollars at Chinese PLA fronts in violation of IRS rules against charities funding foreign governments under Foundation 501c3 charters. That's kind of interesting. What were they funding? I mean, I got it right here from the Senate, October 27th, 2025, from yesterday. We can pull it up. We can look at it. And I wish I knew how to zoom this stuff. just do this. According to recent reports, the Gates Foundation, through grants and direct payments, have funded the Chinese Communist Party and its allies. I'm writing today to ask whether these reports are true, or if not, and if true, how your organization can comports with 501c3 requirements. According to the reports, in 2023, the Gates Foundation directed roughly $11.7 million into various arms of Chinese communist-controlled government. I'll say that again. Directed roughly $11.7 million into various arms of Chinese communist-controlled government, as well as $2 million to a corporation of the Department of Defense's DoD-determined works with the Chinese military, and an additional $6.7 million to state-run universities that help prop up Chinese President Xi Jinping's regime. According to the reporting, the Gates Foundation labels most of its grants to the Chinese government as public health initiatives concerning research, global health awareness, and sanitation, among other areas. According to the Gates Foundation fiscal year 2022 tax filings, the nonprofit provided approximately $23 million in funding to over 20 different Chinese entities, some of which were labeled foreign governments. Oh. Bill Gates is in trouble. Interesting. And I bet if you go back to 2019 and 2020, you'll see the same funding that actually helped support the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Do you see where that's going? Because that's under investigation too. So, interesting enough, Bill Gates today, Microsoft co-founder and author of How to Avoid Climate Disasters, said in a new letter that global leaders should rethink their approach to climate change. Ahead of the upcoming COP30 UN Climate Summit, he argued that too much attention is given to emissions and environmental issues, and that more funding should instead focus on improving lives, particularly by reducing disease and poverty. In other words, Bill Gates is abandoning climate change. You remember, the world's going to end. All the rhetoric that Bill Gates said is, if we don't do something now, Arizona is going to have beachfront property. And if we don't do something now, how many lives are going to be lost on U.S. coastal territories? The ice caps are melting. Bill Gates is now turning back on climate change. Now, why is Bill Gates turning his back on climate change? Well, at the end of the day, it's not about your moral and ethical construct of what you believe in. It's just where the money goes. Because it's all about the money. Microsoft now owns $135 billion, or a 27% stake in OpenAI. Now, why is that anti-global warming? Because artificial intelligence has three primary components which allow it to grow: computational power, data, and energy. Energy requires fucking energy. Well, guess what? Green energy doesn't work for artificial intelligence. Nuclear energy does, oil and gas does, coal does. Now you know why Bill Gates turned his back on global warming. Russia has tested a nuclear-powered cruise missile in the Arctic. That's right. This is actually kind of interesting. Norwegian military intelligence confirmed Russia's test of the 9M730 Versicolor nuclear-powered nuclear-armed cruise missile from Novaya Zemlya test range in the Arctic. The site, infamous for the 1961 Tsar bomb detonation, remains central to Russia's nuclear legacy. The October 21st test reignited global concern over Moscow's pursuit of next-generation strategic weapons. There's no pursuit. They have them. Russia has developed a nuclear-powered cruise missile. Now, if you don't know what that means, it means that when they launch the missile, it can just keep on flying around space for 100 years. They can launch it in the orbit, and that thing will just sit in orbit, circumventing their globe, just like this, because it's nuclear powered. And it can drop anywhere in the world, wherever it wants, whenever it wants. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. A few weeks ago, I said, with the Israel-Hamas negotiation, less than 2 weeks, Netanyahu has ordered military to carry out powerful strikes in the Gaza Strip immediately. And Israel has already started this. Now, I'm pretty sure they'll get a phone call from Donald Trump, but Netanyahu doesn't care. And Hamas doesn't care. I'll be honest about that. Hamas and Netanyahu, neither side cares. But if you take the perspective of what we were talking about earlier with Islam, now you can kind of see Netanyahu's perspective. Not saying it's right, but you can understand why he does what he does. But then, why do the globalists do what they do? Why does the Trump administration do what they do? I want you to watch Jared Kushner's expression in this video.
This right here was always the plan from day zero, and they just told us.
You're builders. You've been in real estate. Tell us more about the plan and how much it's going to cost. Where's the money going to come from? And who's going to award the contracts?
The money raising, we think, is the easy part, but it's the master plan. And we're working with a group of people who have been working on master plans for the last 2 years.
So there are plans already.
We have plans already. We have a master plan already. And by the way, Jared's been pushing this, and we're working together on it. And I think if the world saw the progress so far, they'd be pretty impressed.
Yeah, hang on a second. What do you mean they've been working on it for 2 years already? He kind of had a gaffe there. That's
right, because I believe when this was filmed, it was before October 7th, and it was just released, which means they were working on the plans before October 7th.
So that means that everything else was a script that they already wanted to implement the whole time.
Which goes back to what Charlie Kirk said about October 7th. Was there a stand-down order?
Was there a stand-down order? 6 hours? I don't believe it. Israel's the size of New Jersey. When I took a helicopter ride from Jerusalem to the Gaza border, it's 45 minutes. Wow. 6 hours. They're live streaming the killing of Jews. Did somebody in the government say stand down? That is a legitimate, non-conspiracy question.
The 60-minute episode aired on October 19th.
Okay, so it was filmed immediately after October 7th. They said they were going to do this.
Specifically, 3 days after the Israel-Hamas ceasefire deal completion, October 10th.
Wow.
Now, what does that tell you? A few different things. Number one is Jared Kushner, obviously married to Ivanka Trump. Did you see Jared looking at him and saying, how is he saying this? Kushner was not happy with what he was saying, was he? He wasn't. Trump has said, we're going to go in there. We're going to control the Gaza Strip. We're going to build in the Gaza Strip. Think about a Trump hotel in the middle of the Gaza Strip. Someone just said it in the chat. They said the Kushner and Trump family are going to have generational wealth from the real estate deals that come from this. And they're right. The Trump family is benefiting gloriously from Trump's deals that he's making around the world. Rightfully so. I wouldn't expect anything else. And I'm not saying that it's wrong, because I don't think it is wrong. If you're in those positions, that's what you do. You put your people in the place to do it, right? Now, people will look at this and say, well, Trump's just another globalist. But there's a difference. See, most billionaires or people in those positions of power, for them, it's about more power. It's about centralizing that power and the control and bringing it towards your ideals and, towards your agenda. But within that, and what we've seen over the last 100 years, has never been one bit of involving humanity or the American people in that idea. It's never been about the American people or setting up the benefit of the American people. Now, I'm not saying Trump loves the American people like other people love the American people, like I love the country, because he doesn't. Trump is ruthless and cold. He is. And if you understand the mentality that you have to be in that position of who he is, you'll understand that he has to be ruthless and cruel, but he has to be loving and caring at the same time. And he's a master at that. But this is what you need to see. is that you have more in common with the pink and blue haired lefty trans person down the street than you do with Donald Trump. I assure you. Now, why does that matter? Billionaires and people in positions of power, they live in a completely different world than you do. They see the world completely differently. And there's nothing wrong with what I'm saying. I'm not saying that this is evil. I'm just saying they have to look at the world in a completely different context than you do. This is their constructed worldview based upon power, authority, and money, which is the lifeblood that moves it all around. Now, how Trump is different is that Donald Trump went to all these other globalists and he says, hey, you're making all these decisions, you're doing all these things, but what about the people? And they're like, we don't give a fuck about the people. We're going to get rid of 85% of the people of the world. And he said, that's not right. And Trump says, look, what if we can do this? What if we can build a massive technological global society where each country retains its own nationalism, its own sovereignty? The people get the benefit in the wealth generated and created. And we don't lose power. As in, they stay rich and wealthy. They stay at the top of the echelon of the food chain. This is what you're seeing. Agree with me or not? It's what you're seeing. Now, do you blame them? No, I think anybody in that position would do the same thing. Just about anybody in that position would do the same thing. You ensure that your family is going to be well taken care of, well protected, that your family is going to be a part of the future of this world. You're going to make sure that your friends and people that you're invested with are going to be a part of this world, that your agenda lives on through the values that you've implemented through the people that have grown around you. Nothing wrong with that. And that's what he's doing. But he's bringing the American people along with him. And I think that that's the most important factor. Because he's saying, we cannot let the American people, or the people of the world for that matter, suffer, die off, or fall victim to the new world that's being created. No. They have to be a primary part of it. They have to be the life fabric that builds it, that sustains it. That's how Trump's different, at least in my opinion. If you want a stock to buy, and you can get in tomorrow really early in the morning, buy NVIDIA. Today alone, NVIDIA has announced a partnership with the U.S. Department of Energy, 7 new supercomputers for the U.S. government, $1 billion investment in Nokia, set to announce AI partnership with Samsung, AI partnership with Hyundai, announced $500 billion in expected business over the next 6 quarters. The AI revolution is bigger than you could ever imagine. Today. So keep that all in mind with what I just said. UPS, 48,000, Amazon, 30,000, Intel, 24,000, Nestle, 16,000, Accenture, 11,000, Ford, 11,000, Novo Nordisk, 9,000, Microsoft, 7,000, PwC, 5,600, Salesforce, 4,000, Paramount, 2,000, Target, 1,800, Kroger, 1,000, Applied Materials, 1,400, Meta, 600. What is those numbers? That's the amount of layoffs that were announced recently. Why are those layoffs? Because something that we've been telling you was coming, but nobody wanted to listen.
My name is Bernd, and today we're launching Neo, our humanoid for the home.
Neo, the robot, Nini.
Let you live with it.
Yeah.
You just
Robotics and artificial intelligence are beginning to take over. What are they taking over? Manufacturing, processing, various labor risk levels of work. It's coming. It's happening. Amazon is one of the forefront leaders in this, and they are getting rid of over 30,000 employees. UPS, the movement of packages and shipments is not, UPS isn't necessarily the drivers and the pilots. It's the people in between that are loading the planes and loading the vans and sorting the mail. Well, guess what? We have automation that does that now. This is part of the new world that's coming. All right. I got a few things on some other stuff here we're going to talk about in a second. Doing something real quick. Let me do this real quick. I got to refresh that bad boy. All right. Give me 1 second here. And by the way, we do have DEF CON 0 tonight. That is in 30 minutes from now on Badlands on Rumble. So I hope that you guys will be there. I just got to pay. I'm supposed to do a few of these, and I only remember to do one of them. So we'll do this guy. I'm actually getting the. I already ordered this product. So this episode is brought to you by ZipX nicotine-infused toothpicks, a satisfying, discreet, and great-tasting way to curb cravings anytime, anywhere. Perfect for flights, events, restaurants, or anywhere smoking and vaping are banned. ZipX satisfies both nicotine cravings and the hand-to-mouth habit with 6 long-lasting flavors and 2 milligram and 3 milligram strengths, proudly made in the USA and one of the most cost-effective options out there. Not into nicotine, try our caffeine or B12 infused picks for a boost. Zip more, smoke less. Visit zipxtoothpicks.com and get 10% off your first order with code CREATOR. Must be 21 plus. Warning, nicotine can be an addictive chemical. All right. Probably with the length of the show, that's the only one I'm going to get to be able to put in there. But I wanted to also put this out there. So there's a few things that I'm doing. I'm actually traveling next week, and I'm going to be traveling a lot more here in the course of the next few months. So we are going to try to raise some money for travel. If you guys want to help and support us in any way, shape, or form, donate to redpills.tv/PayPal or at redpills.tv/go. It's ways that you can help directly support us and everything that we have coming up. Also trying to revamp the whole studio. I got grainy cameras and all this type of stuff. I got a new computer, but I got grainy cameras and all this other stuff. So if you guys want to help with that, appreciate it. redpills.tv/PayPal or redpills.tv/go. As well, there's tons of other, that's definitely not, that was the Truth Seekers Conference that I took part in. Wrong link there. Obviously, we know redpillsmusic.com. A lot of this music is available on iTunes, Amazon Music, Google, YouTube Music. It's also on Spotify. You just search Guardians of Truth, and you can find those albums to stream it if you have Spotify Premium. Or you can just go to redpillsmusic.com. There's a new single that is released. That's one song I played yesterday that's on Red Pills Music. You can go check that out. Now, this is interesting. If you've been listening to this guy, Avi Loeb, he's the head of the astronomy department at Harvard, talking about 3i Atlas. And tomorrow is a big day for 3i Atlas because this is where it kind of comes around the sun, and we begin to see if it breaks up or if it doesn't break up, if it slows down, speeds up, or anything of this happen. But listen to what he says right here, and then I'm going to play something for you.
2 weeks ago, I realized the arrival direction of 3i Atlas was within 9 degrees of the wow signal that was detected in 1977, which was an enigmatic, powerful radio signal that definitely came from outside of this Earth. We don't know from where. It was coming from a source that was approaching the sun. And the chance of it aligning with the arrival direction of 3i Atlas is 0.6%. And I just said, well, that's interesting because 3i Atlas was at a distance of 3 light days from the Earth at that time, you know, and you just need about the output of a nuclear reactor on Earth, a gigawatt or so, to produce such a radio signal.
Now, pretty interesting there. You need a gigawatt to produce that type of signal. That's a lot of power that had to go in. So people like Avi Loeb obviously suspect that that is some type of intelligent signal. I found this guy on TikTok, and I went and kind of started looking into what he was saying. And actually, what he's saying is highly accurate. And I didn't know this about the WOW signal. But listen to what he says about the WOW signal. And then put two and two together of what we're seeing.
Evan, we got a message from space with literal instructions on how to respond, and we spent 47 years arguing about whether it was real. The WOW signal. You know it? That's the famous 72-second burst from space that scientists have been debating, was it aliens, a comet, or Earth interference? Here's the thing. Nobody actually tried to read it. Like, what does 6EQUJ5 actually mean? So I did, and oh my god, we're idiots. The signal is 6EQUJ5. Those values sum to exactly 100. Okay, cool. Random number, right? Except immediately after the signal, the computer recorded 011001000. That's 100 in binary. They sent us a checksum. You know, like when you download a file and it verifies whether it got corrupted, they literally open their message with, here's how to verify data integrity. And we've been sitting here for 47 years like, but is it aliens though? But wait, it gets so much better. The peak of the signal is the letter U. That's the 21st letter of the alphabet. A, B, C, 21st letter, U, right? This signal was broadcast at the hydrogen line, 21 centimeter wavelengths. They peaked the signal at the 21st letter to match the 21 centimeter wavelength. That's not coincidence. That's someone putting the signature on a document. We're out here like, could have been a comet that understands Fibonacci and the alphabet. Yeah, sure. And here's where it goes from neat to we should be embarrassed. 72 seconds long, that's the transmission duration we should be using. 6 data points, that's how many packets to send back. Value in base 36 encoding, that's the format. And the sum equals verification code, that includes a checksum. It's communication protocols, like Wi-Fi setup instructions. We've literally been arguing about whether someone sent us mail and they sent us a user's manual on how to reply. Here's another thing that blew my mind. The signal goes from 6, 14, 26, and peaks at 30, then drops down to 19. The ratio, 19 divided by 30, it's phi. It's the golden ratio, 0.618. The pattern that shows up literally everywhere in galaxy spirals, nautilus shells, pine cones, you name it. They encoded it into the signal pattern itself, and it's like a watermark that screams, this is intelligent design. Oh yeah, but probably just some space weather that understands sacred geometry. The values themselves, they might be giving us a map. 5 light years, that's Alpha Centauri. 6 light years, Bernard's star. 14 light years, Epsilon Eridani. And 30 light years is Tau Ceti. Every single one of these is a real star system with confirmed exoplanets that we've been studying. They're not saying we're here. They're saying we're in one of these systems. Pick up the phone. It's like somebody sending you their address and you spend 50 years being like, I wonder if I just got a message. Okay, last thing. It's the weirdest one. If you convert the signal to base 4, the same way DNA works with 4 nucleotides, the sequence becomes GGG-GCT. That codes for glycine and alanine, the 2 simplest amino acids, the ones that probably formed first anywhere organic chemistry happens.
I know it was hard to listen to him. But that's the best take of the WOW signal I've ever heard in my life. Pretty interesting, isn't it? What if? I think we'll find out about 3i Atlas. I think that if it is intelligence or if it is something of that nature, we'll know. We'll know very shortly. Now, if it's not, it still makes you wonder, what is really going on? I think we're going to find out at some point in time. 2027 is where I think that comes about. If you want to support us, redpills.tv, tons of stuff, ways to do that. Social media, follow where you're at, like, share, comment. Likes help us get ranked on those leaderboards. So please give us those likes. Redpills.tv right there. RedPillProject.SUBSTACK. We stream there live every night. We have great content that gets posted there all the time. RedPillProject.Substack.com, or get a subscription where you're at. You can take part in our Thursday Q&As. This Thursday, yep, absolutely a Q&A. And then I was talking about it earlier. If you want to help support us in any way, shape, or form, you can absolutely go over and support our music. RedPillsMusic.com, REDPILLS music.com. And then as well, if you wanted to go ahead and help donate and support, one of the best ways to do that is to go over and use our PayPal or our Give, Send, Go campaigns. And that is right there, redpills.tv/PayPal or at redpills.tv/go. All right, guys, I'm going to leave you with a great song. I got about 15 minutes to get ready for my next show. And so you guys have a great night. Much love, respect. God bless. Take care. And we'll see you tomorrow. And some of you we'll see here in a little bit.
There was a time when our children stood tall, hand on their hearts, one voice for all. There was a time when honor had weight, when the flag was a symbol, not a debate. There was a time when our history was known, with pride in the rules that made us our own. There was a time, respect for the brave, for those who bled, for the lives they gave. Now the homeland burns in silent war. Truth is twisted, we can't ignore. Voice still calls, we the people will not fall. There was a time, but the time isn't near. The great awakening is here. Dark to light, veil under, patriots rise. We are one, land of the free, home of the brave. No more silence, no more slaves. Answer the call, take back the fight. Children of freedom, stand for the light. There was a time when truth was clear, when the media served, not ruled by fear. There was a time when leaders stood fast, guarding the people, defending the past. Now corruption wears a crown, lies are fed to tear us down. But Q said watch, and Q said see. The silent war will set us free. From the front lines, soldiers stare, wondering if we're still there. Their blood, their hope, their sacrifice will not be sold for
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on. Or we will spend our sunset years telling our children what it was once like in the United States where men were free.
There was a time, the time is near, the great awakening is here. Dark to light, veil undone, patriots rise, we are one. Land of the free, home of the brave, no more silence, no more slaves. Answer the call, take back the fight. Children of freedom, stand for the light. There was a time, there was a time, now is the time. Do it.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. The air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation. I want you to get mad.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
The more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out.
These people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy.
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, "I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!"